My daughter yelled, "Pay your rent or leave." So I walked out. She had no clue that I was the owner of the house. I had discreetly sold it for $940,000. When the eviction process began, she reached out to me in a frenzy, but my reply left her speechless. Hey, Reddit. At some point in a man's life, he realizes that those he cares for the most might never view him as he sees them. For me, that moment came on a quiet Tuesday morning in the living room of the home I built myself, while my daughter stood before me, her voice slicing through years of memories. "Pay your rent or leave," she shouted. For a moment, I genuinely questioned if I had misheard her. Rent in my own house. Her expression was twisted with annoyance, arms crossed, foot tapping on the hardwood floor I had sanded with my own hands. She didn't resemble the girl I raised. She seemed like a stranger wearing her face. I stood there, silent and shocked, feeling the floor shift beneath me. That house was more than just a structure. It was where I carried her in from the car the day she was born, where she took her first unsteady steps, where my wife and I stayed awake through every fever, every nightmare, every scraped knee. But after my wife's passing, the atmosphere changed. My daughter insisted I move in with her for companionship, claiming it would benefit us both. Initially, it was nice. We had dinners together, we conversed, we healed. But gradually the tone shifted. Small comments at first. "You're home a lot. Maybe help with groceries. You should contribute to the water bill. You take long showers, Dad." I didn't argue. I tried to help. Then her husband added his remarks. "Everyone pays rent, old man." Old man, as if I were a burden, like I was just a guest. I ignored it until that morning when I couldn't anymore. She didn't suggest, she didn't hint, she ordered me. "You have until Friday," she snapped. "Or you're out." I blinked slowly, my heart feeling oddly calm. I stated cautiously that I needed to pay rent to stay in a house. "What?" she interrupted, her voice rising. "A house you think you deserve, Dad. Seriously, grow up. Grow up for my own child." Her husband leaned against the doorway, smirking. "You heard her. Pay up or leave." Something inside me snapped, not loudly or dramatically, just a subtle internal break. I grabbed my coat, my keys, my old leather bag, and walked to the door. I half expected her to stop me. She didn't. The door clicked shut behind me like punctuation at the end of a long, painful chapter. Here's the truth. They never considered that I legally owned the house, entirely and quietly. They never checked the deed, never asked questions, never thought they weren't the center of the universe. After my wife's passing, I consolidated everything. I put the house in my name, updated all documents, and prepared for the day my time would come. I never imagined my daughter would try to force me out of it. So when I left her home that morning, I didn't go to a hotel or a friend's couch. I went to my lawyer. He looked at the papers, then at me. "Are you sure you want to do this?" I nodded. My wife and I built that home, but it no longer felt like a home. He exhaled slowly. "All right, we'll list it immediately." The house hit the market and didn't last long. A young couple expecting their first child fell in love with it as soon as they walked through the door. They moved from room to room with soft smiles, whispering about nurseries and Christmas mornings. They offered $940,000, and I accepted. The moment I signed, something inside me relaxed. Grief, relief, freedom, all intertwined in one breath. The house was no longer mine, and it certainly wasn't hers. 2 weeks later, I sat in a small cafe, black coffee in hand, soft jazz playing in the background, when my phone buzzed insistently. My daughter, 5 missed calls. 6. 7. I picked up on the 8th. Her voice was frantic, nothing like the woman who had screamed, "Leave." Dad, why aren't you home? Some people are here. They're saying they bought the house." "Dad, what's happening?" "They said they have papers," she cried. "They said we have 30 days. Dad, say something." Did I sip my coffee calmly? "I'm not home," I replied. "Where are you?" "Tell them it's a mistake. Tell them you didn't sell." Dad, tell me you didn't." Her breath hitched, fear palpable. The same fear she once made me feel. I watched the world outside the cafe window. Parents walking with kids, people laughing, sunlight casting bright patches on the street. Life. Peace. Things I hadn't felt in a long time. She waited, trembling. "Dad, please tell me you didn't sell the house." I didn't answer yet, because the truth she never saw coming was about to strike like thunder. The next words I spoke would silence her completely. "You should never yell, 'Get out,' to a man who already possesses the keys." What I told her next left her speechless. My daughter's voice trembled across the line, fear evident. Dad, you have to tell them. Tell them you didn't sell it. Call them back. Tell them you changed your mind. Please. They can't. They can't just. I folded my hands around the coffee cup I had been nursing and listened. For a long time, I thought of all the mornings I woke early to scrape frost off her windshield, all the nights I waited for her to come home, all the times she clung to my jacket as if I were her last safe place. But listening isn't the same as hearing. I heard only panic now. No gratitude, no memory, just the noise of people who suddenly needed something they had spent years neglecting to appreciate. Sarah, I said, and the name felt strange on my tongue. I sold the house. Silence enveloped us, thick and heavy. You what? Her voice was raw, cracking into a whisper. I sold it 2 weeks ago. It closed last Monday. There was a long, terrible breath on the other end. Then the pleading returned, frantic and thin. You can't do that, she whispered. Dad, you can't. Don't leave us. This wasn't a conversation to be begged out of. It was an explanation I owed, and I intended to deliver it firmly, with no tremor that could be used to distort the truth. I'm not leaving, I said calmly. But I will not be forced from my home by those who turned their backs when I needed love, not accounting. I sold it because it had become a place of disrespect. I converted the asset into something that protects the future I choose. Her breath stopped somewhere between a sob and a plea. Where is the money? She demanded. Who did you sell it to? Give it back. Give it back. I set the cup down and replied with a steadiness it took me a lifetime to develop. I sold it to a young couple who will raise their child in that house, filled with laughter and homework on the kitchen table. The proceeds were placed in a trust. For your children, not for you. There it was. My sentence landed with the weight of a tide. Silence, then a strangled cry. You promised. You promised, she stammered, as if a promise were something I owed her, because she had once wanted something from me. I promised to be a father, I said. Not a bank. My daughter's husband burst into the room then, his face pale and frantic. This is extortion, he almost shouted. You can't just, you're going to ruin us. How will we? How will you what? I retorted. Live in a house you didn't earn? Keep the armor of entitlement patched with my kindness. He leaned forward, chest heaving, and then he uttered something I had heard all my life in various forms. You owe us. No, I said. The word fell like winter sunlight, clean and cold. I owe you nothing. As their shouting escalated into a clamor on their end of the line, I did something I had rehearsed in my mind for hours. I reached into my wallet, took out my phone, and opened an app. Look, I said, holding the screen out to them, though they were miles away and couldn't see the printed documents waiting on my kitchen table. I've already done the accounting. The trust holds the proceeds. There's a college fund. There's a modest annuity for me to live comfortably without their interference. And there's a moving stipend for you to help you transition. A new kind of silence enveloped us, bewilderment followed by disbelief. You did what? My daughter whispered. I set the trust so your children's education is secure, I explained. I made sure they will have a roof and food, but not at the cost of making me disappear. And I arranged a relocation fund. It will cover 6 months' rent, moving expenses, and counseling if you want help getting back on your feet and learning how to treat people with respect. She was breathless with a mix of gratitude and fury that felt almost obscene. You think that's enough? You think a check will fix this? You sold my future. I sold the future of a house that had become a cage, I replied. I converted it into a future I want, one that treats my grandchildren kindly but also teaches accountability. There was a long, choked sound, my daughter's grief morphing into something sharper. You tricked us, she accused. You waited until we kicked you out and then used it as a stain to punish us. I shook my head, even though she couldn't see me. No, I waited until I was ready to stop being moved like a chess piece in your plans. I chose instead to make a gift that binds the future without allowing the present to be a weapon. The conversation shifted from pleading to bargaining, from bargaining to accusations. They hurled insults at me, threatened legal action, and accused me of elder abuse for acting in my own best interest. They tried to shame me for finally thinking of myself. And you know what the strangest thing was? That bitterness taught me compassion. At one point, my daughter wailed, broken and sincere. I'm scared, Dad. We have nowhere to go. I thought you'd always be there. I don't know how to be without you. There's a tenderness that lives beneath the harshest words. I heard it, and it pulled something within me toward mercy. I know you're scared, I said softly. And I'm sorry I didn't teach you how to build a life that doesn't rely on someone else's sacrifice. She was quiet for a long time. Can we come for a talk? We'll take the stipend. We'll do the paperwork. Just please don't leave me. I closed my eyes, the ocean's distant rhythm filling my mind. You called me to the house with a demand, I said. Finally, you asked me to pay rent in a house that bears my name. I left because you treated me like an intruder. Today, I did something permanent, not to punish you, but to protect what's left of us. If you want to rebuild, start by rebuilding yourself. Then perhaps we'll have something to repair together. She sobbed, not the angry, entitled sob from earlier, but a small, human one. Okay, she whispered. I'll try. I didn't promise to return to the old life. I promised only to be there in measured, mutual ways, like a man who has learned his worth stands. Generous but not at the expense of his dignity. When I hung up, I felt lighter than I had in years. It wasn't victory, it was clarity. They had taken their shot at me. I took mine at them, not to harm, but to create a life where I wasn't disposable. And for the first time since my wife's funeral, I slept like a man who finally owned his own.